try to give you a picture of how we have done it in Gothenburg in a pilot project and how we look into it in the future, and ending up with the perspective from the technology view of the bus platform itself. When driving in the city, close to the close to the city cells and everything, what will happen and needs to happen to the buses in the future. So that would basically be the topic. Unfortunately, we had one person calling in sick this morning, so we have a good manuscript and we have Viveca's pictures, so we will go through them anyway. I will do the presentation myself. I am not an expert, but we will together try to answer the questions raised, and those questions we can't answer, we promise to get back to you and publish the answers on the webpage. So having said that, I would like to introduce Mr. Peter Lindgren to take us through the electricity experiences we have had here in Gothenburg. Please, Peter.
Yes, hello. So, I'm the city coordinator of electricity, so I coordinate for the different city companies and other parts of the city. So we can start the presentation. So electricity is a research and demonstration arena. It's a cooperation between a number of companies, 14 partners all in all today, and it started back in 2013 about when the project was formed. In 2015 we started the electric bus line 55. You can swap to the next one. So they started at Volvo Ocean Race in 2015. Electric bus line between two campuses of University of Chalmers, right through the city center of Gothenburg. There is 3 electric buses and a number of hybrid buses. So the original buses were the prototypes. It says charging in each end stop. And on the campus of Lindholmen, it has an indoor bus stop to test the facilities and how it works in all kind of weather. There was a number of new bus stops, silent bus stops, introduced. We run on shared space, it's on a pedestrian ground. We run Wi-Fi and USB charging on the buses for the comfort of the passengers. You can see the indoor bus stop up to the right. So 2 different types of buses. So the full electric one is a short-nosed one. It's a prototype that Volvo developed. So it has no front doors, but 2 big little doors. It's actually quite popular, but unfortunately it doesn't work so well with the infrastructure on the bus stops. So for the future it will be more normal buses. The new electric buses will be more normal looking front doors. Volvo also developed a complete bus depot to test how these buses will be serviced and maintained. As everything is on the roof on these buses, it was natural to make a platform. And due to all the regulations, it's a very nice platform where you squeeze in the bus so you don't drop tools and other things to the ground. There's also a control center to run the bus line. The indoor bus stop at the Lindholmen. It also works very well. We had some concerns regarding how it would work in Swedish winter time, but it works actually quite well, also in the summertime and when it rains. We use heat from the chargers in the basement to heat up. So the bus is charged here for about 3 minutes. It's a 300 kilowatts charger. There are also some facilities around. There's a cafe around. You can pick up your parcels. You can sit down for a while. it's become a very popular place.
There is one person using the keyboard on his or her computer. I would be happy if you could mute your microphone while writing on the keyboard, okay?
Another very interesting aspect of these buses is that they are geofenced. So for the hybrid buses, it means that it can only run electric through the city center and on some areas around the campuses. And on all buses, they are controlled, the speed is controlled, so it can't run faster than 50 kilometers per hour on the avenue, and around the chair spaces where you chair with the pedestrians, it can only run for, I think, 10 kilometers per hour. And over the top of the bridge, it can also run in like 10 kilometers per hour. So this is a function that is very popular within the city, of course, that we can control the speeds, but also the drivers is very happy about it. It takes out some concerns for them to keep the speed down. Yep. Another problem in the cities is, of course, noise. In Sweden, we have in Gothenburg, we have 1 million crown per year in cost from road traffic. We have something called dailies, that we have 1,200 disability adjusted life years. So when it comes to electric buses, this is one of the main features that the city is looking at. Not that is carbon dioxide neutral or so, but there's local exposure of sound and other pollutants is very important for the city. So we did a comparison between gas buses, diesel buses, and electric buses. So we measured on a test track, and we put it in our models. So you can see that the decibel C spectrum is very big difference, especially on the low frequency band, up to 25 decibels. So it's, of course, what you can hear, it's more or less completely quiet when the electric bus runs past, and very noisy when the diesel bus comes past it. Oh. So we checked it, we put this data into our models, and unfortunately we found out that we didn't see any real advantages when it came to electric buses. One cause of this is that the models use decibel A, I think, and that is high and low frequencies are damped out in decibel A. The other is that it is medelvärde, average adjusted. So a lot of cars just outweigh a few buses on these roads. But here's when we put in the actual figures, we notice a very big difference on the facade noise levels. Another thing with low frequency noise is that it's very difficult to damp. You need very long distances over very thick walls to do it. So going to electric buses is a very easy way for the city to lower the inside noise in apartments around when there are buses or other heavy traffic. Yep. So said this, the line 55 was a huge success. It's run now for almost 3 years, over 3 years. And a couple of years ago, we decided to move on with longer buses, with high capacity buses. So this is line 16 that runs high capacity buses. It's a little bit more powerful chargers, but otherwise it's basically the same. The buses are a little longer than normal, and it takes a lot of passengers. It's for the most high capacity line that we have in Gothenburg, line 16. These buses started running in Volvo Ocean Race 2018. So it was also a big success. Yeah, we will. Yeah, we have automated city buses. I think Volvo will talk more about these later on. But this is also a part that the city sees that it's very important to increase the capacity of the public transport system in cities, and also the comfort for the passengers. Another part that we're looking at in electricity is now heavy trucks. It has the same advantages in the city as electric buses, with a much lower noise. So we have 2 buses in electricity, 1 delivery truck and 1 refuse truck. They all also have different battery sizes installed. The delivery truck will probably need to charge during the day, but the refuse truck shall have enough power to run all through the day. The other thing is, of course, when it comes to trucks, is that the work carried out in the city, emptying and loading, it's very important that it also becomes quite quiet. And this has become a success factor in Gothenburg. Today we have several projects where we will change the public transport system in Gothenburg to electric buses. The first one will come in September, something next year, where we swap 30 buses to electric around a hub. And this is done within the present procurement, so it's a little bit special. And then we have a number of new procurement in Gothenburg for several hundred buses that will certainly hope that this is also going to be electric. Problem is that this is not the city procuring electric buses. It's a PTA that is regional that will do this. But the city is supporting the development of electric bus lines. For example, when it comes to charging infrastructure, we want to make sure that the city streets can be used for charging public transport buses. So we're working together with the PTA and also with traffic companies that want to run electric buses to be sure that the infrastructure can be built on city streets. Oh, yes. So here is a little bit more about the charging infrastructure. There is, of course, several different ways to do this. Either you charge at end stops or on certain hubs, public transport hubs, or at the depot at night. But we want to make sure that either way that it's possible to build on city streets. There might be a need for more space when you build on end stop, so 1 bus can charge and 1 bus can park next to it. We need to make sure that there's enough power in the electric grid, both locally that you can charge the bus, and also for the city that there are power enough for hundreds of buses to be charged. So who will build the infrastructure? It's not clear yet. The city in Gothenburg has said that we want to build it, but it can be the PTA or it can be the traffic company or some other private company that is assigned to do it. But in either case, it needs to be a very close cooperation between the parties involved to make sure that the infrastructure is built in a good way, and also clear regulation on what will happen once the procurement time ends. So this is actually something we're working with right now to make sure that this works. So for the city of Gothenburg, it's a very clear strategy that we want more electric buses. So we signed the EU Declaration of Clean Buses, where we commit to promoting large-scale deployment of clean electric buses in our case. And we're working with a local PTA to make sure that we get as much electric bus traffic as we can in the city the coming years. We also need a number of other factors here that's maybe not so obvious, but for example, education. There will be a lot of diesel engineers left over maybe, and we need a lot of electrical engineers, so we need to have education plans in place. The bus depot has to be a little bit different to be able to hold a lot of electric buses with a lot of power, and usually also need to be quite close to the traffic and of course the charging infrastructure. So this was the end of my presentation. Here is actually a picture of the Volvo Ocean Race in 15, where we built up a library where we run the new bus line through. And if you take one more down, this was 2018 Volvo Ocean Race, where we built up how a city with only electric traffic will look like, a very green, attractive, quiet city. So this is something that both Volvo, the city and region has in common, how we look at the future with electric heavy traffic in cities. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, that was the presentation of Peter Lindgren. Anyone who has the guts to try to raise a question in this forum? Okay, then we continue the presentation or the webinar, and it will then be myself talking about this topic. Yes. Okay, this is then the presentation of Mrs. Viveka Risberg, who unfortunately called in sick this morning. However, I have, she sent me her script, or her manuscript, so I will basically just go through the pictures and read her notes about the slides. And maybe I somewhere will stumble over saying I and me rather than Viveka or Mrs. Risberg, but please forgive me for that. So we're going to talk about opportunities that electric vehicles will offer for future urban planning and how it relates to the planning process today. What the difference is between the vision of the city and the work to produce a detailed development plan in accordance with the governing legislation. Innovative solutions can be very hard to implement when current rules and regulations must be complied with. So this is slides of Mrs. Viveka Risberg, and she works on a daily basis with programs and detailed development plans at Gothenburg City's Planning Office. Another of her tasks is to be the City Planning's Office Coordinator for Electricity that Peter just presented about. This is a partnership to test innovations and new solutions for electrified vehicles, primarily buses, but also other heavy transport. It is easy to see the benefits for the urban environment of electrified vehicles, especially with regard to noise and air quality, and for the way we use the land in the city. It is easy to think that this will have an immediate impact on the way we plan and build new areas. The legislation in force governs city planning, and the city and the county administrative board must agree on how air quality and traffic noise are calculated. Traffic noise is a significant environmental problem in Gothenburg. At low speeds, the sound comes primarily from vehicle engines, and heavy traffic is responsible for much of the traffic noise, hence the city noise. Noise from electric buses is typically 5 to 9 dBA lower than for diesel buses, which is experienced as almost a halving of the noise. So this scale of decibels is, as I remember it, 3 dB is a doubling of the level, so to say, that you could actually hear and experience. And if we look into this chart, we can very clearly see the difference between diesel buses and electrical buses when it comes to low speed. So on the horizontal axis, you have the speed and you have the noise level on the standing axis. And you can clearly see that the difference is reduced the higher speed the vehicle is traveling in. But typically in the city then, at low speed, the difference will be notable. Electric buses produce almost no low-frequency noise. Low-frequency noise spreads over a larger area than high-frequency noise, so electrifying buses makes a big difference in the environment, concludes Mrs. Riesbeck. When calculating traffic noise for a detailed development plan, the plan must be drawn up for the noisiest situation, of course. Consideration should be given to future traffic volumes, looking long-term into the future, of course. This is expensive stuff, so it needs to be done in a proper way. The number of vehicles and the proportion of heavy traffic are used in the calculation, but consideration may not be given to how the buses and lorries are run, because that cannot be controlled by the detailed development plan. Volvo's first electrical refuse lorry is now being put into service by Gothenburg City Refuse Collection Company, and other electric heavy vehicles are also being developed. Gothenburg City has backed a partnership agreement with Västtrafik, that's the head of the public transportation authority, ahead of the procurement of new city buses that will come into service in 2020 to 2023. The aim is to gradually move to electrical buses in the city, but until the procurement is finished, we don't know the pace of the technological shift. The areas we plan today will not be built until after we are probably well on the way in the transition to electrified heavy transport. But the noise calculations will be made for diesel and gas vehicles before we are sure that the technical shift will take place. The calculations also do not take into consideration that most of the gains will come from the low frequency noise. Gothenburg is sparsely populated, and new dwellings are therefore one of the city's priority goals. So are new workplaces. The dwellings and workplaces will be developed in central locations and along the public transport routes. Much of these areas are affected by air pollution due to the emissions from vehicles that run on fossil fuels. Our calculations of the air quality are based on a worst-case scenario, which makes the risk high that the limit values will be exceeded. The calculations include the fact that the exhaust emissions will be lower in a few years, but it's not possible to go all the way and calculate that all of the heavy traffic is electrified, of course. In 2020, the municipalities in Sweden will be able to use a new environmental zone where only electric vehicles, fuel cell vehicles, and plug-in hybrids and gas vehicles that meet Euro 6 are permitted. Such an environmental zone and procure public transport with electric buses could mean that we could calculate the noise and air quality with electrified vehicles, but we are not there today. For decades, Gothenburg has been a city where much of the land is used for cars. The buildings have ended up as islands between traffic routes and parking places. When shifting from private cars to public transport, less space will be needed per traveler. In central locations where many pass, a high capacity of public transport is required, which means that bus and tram stops are separated. That takes up a large amount of street space. we get streets that swell and push the building away at the bus and tram stops. Conflicts can arise between the need for land for stops and for buildings. Electric buses have been tested at indoor stops. If electric buses are implemented in full, it may be possible in some strategic locations to have only indoor stops for buses. The buildings could then go as far out to the street at the stops as they do along the straight stretches of the streets. Lindholmen Science Park and the municipal company Älvstranden have had an idea study conducted on how indoor stops could be designed. Actually, inside, in the middle of the building, like a train station from the 19th century, or as a display window. Many things remain to be solved if a bus stop moves in from its space on the street to the ground floor of a building. For example, how to cross pedestrians and cycleways, but we could build a denser city which such stops once we have gone over to electric buses. And, of course, all the other systems of the future bus coming along with this. Much of these So, to summarize, the noise and air quality in central Gothenburg are greatly affected by the heavy traffic. When, perhaps in 5 to 10 years, we can include electrified vehicles in the calculations performed in the work on detailed development plans, it will be possible to motivate dwellings and workplaces in many more places than we actually can do today. And this is very, very important. We can build a tighter city. We will also be able to build more densely in some important destinations in the city if electric buses enable stops to be moved inside buildings, into buildings, rather than taking place on the street. That is when city planning can really benefit from electrified vehicles. And then just some concept ideas of how this could look. And this concludes the slides from Mrs. Vivica Risberg, who unfortunately are home sick today. But nevertheless, we had the chance to listen to her via myself. So if you have any questions about the slides we've been looking into now, perfectly happy to take them now. We might not be able to answer them without Vivica, but in case so, we will take them, note them down, and get back to you with an answer. So please, any questions? You can also use the chat function, of course, to send a question to us. Okay, then we jump into the third presentation that we have in this webinar, and that will be from Mr. Magnus Brobeck from Volvo.
Okay, hello everybody. As Ola said, my name is Magnus Brobeck. I work in Volvo Buses. I work in leading a team that is called City Mobility. And the task we have is actually to help cities to transform to electric buses and electric transport in general. So that's what we do. You have seen this picture before. Peter showed it a couple of minutes ago here. It is from 2015, it's the library, and it's a reminder actually to me nowadays that this is what it's all about. This is about creating new possibilities for electric or for bus transport. And you can see also the sub-headline, the pioneers in electromobility. Volvo Buses was really early. We started with hybrids already in 2008. We started with plug-in buses in 2016, and now, of course, we also offer electric buses. So we have really been in this journey, and if I look back 4 years or 4 or 5 years, there is a huge difference now to 2014 and 15, where we had to talk about motivating electric buses, but that's not the case anymore. Now it's just a question of how should we do it and when should we do it. I will try to put some different angles. Many of the things that I will touch have been already addressed by Peter and Ola, but I will see if I can make a bit of a different twist on the themes mentioned here. If you go to the next slide, Ola. As this is just another picture of the indoor station, the possibilities in cities. With lower noise, with less vibration, with zero emission, everything is more or less possible to make or to get public transport closer to the people. And let me take my take on the noise topic as well. Go to the next one, Ola. We separate in 3 different types of noise: the exterior noise, and then interior noise and indoor noise. And let me start by saying that electromobility is a potential to reduce noise. It gives you a possibility to reduce noise. And you have to exploit the potential of reducing noise. And you don't have to exploit the potential of electrification to reduce the noise, because you can build an electric bus that is totally as noisy as a traditional bus. So you really need to spend some efforts in using or exploiting the potential of electrification. And what you can see here is then the exterior noise and the result when we have taken the full potential of noise on a Volvo bus. The comparison here is in cruise by and take off, and it's similar to the figures that Ola showed in the previous presentation, 7 to 8 decibels reduction in this type of operation. And as he also told you, this is a dramatic difference, of course. So that was the exterior noise, which is then, of course, affecting the people outside the bus. If we go to the next one, which we talk about interior noise, here you can see even bigger reductions in noise. And this is, of course, very important for the passengers inside the bus, but mainly, I would say, it's important for the driver of the bus. The driver of the bus lives in this environment for 8 hours a day or something like that. And with such a reduction in noise, such a reduction in vibrations, they get a better life, actually. And so important to remember, because we might spend 30 minutes in the bus or 45 maximum in a city application, but they are there for 8 hours. So very important to remember the driver aspect of this one. Let's go to the third aspect of noise, which is indoor noise. And here it has been explained by the previous speaker that this is the low frequency noise that can go through walls. The walls goes through the walls and into your apartments. And here you can see the most dramatic difference. And this gives opportunities to do traffic in areas where you have not been allowed to do it because of noise regulations. And also to actually to build cheaper or use cheaper building materials, actually. So it is a potential to have public transport close, but also to reduce the cost of buildings. Of course, you need to plan, and this is why it's so important to understand that this from a city planning perspective, since these processes are long everywhere, in every city, you need to be clear from the beginning that here I'm actually going to deploy silent buses, and then you can deploy and you can take the benefits or get the benefits of the lower noise if you do it from the beginning. This is a nice old environment in Gothenburg, so here you have already built, but for sure when you do new environments and new city development, this is for sure an important aspect. Let me go on to something else. Let's look at the next slide. I will spend some minutes here on something that is really important in our dialogues with the cities. Some number crunching here, so sorry for that, but that's how it is. I think the difference we see, if I look 4 years back, is that we have been able to address a lot of things which makes electric bus traffic a lot more flexible actually, and I will explain what. Let's go to the next slide. First of all, there are new chemistries on the battery side enabling bigger battery and still being able to charge with a high power. So you have new battery chemistries enabling this, and also a possibility to add more energy into the bus. So here you can see the modularity of a Volvo bus at today, 150, 200, 200 or 250 kilowatt hours, but still possible to charge really fast, 290 kilowatts, and giving you a lot of flexibility. Let's go to the next slide. There we also have a change in the last 1 or 2 years where we actually allow our customers, our operators, to charge in 3 different ways. The OppCharge, the fast charge system with a pantograph placed on the pole, going down up to 300 kilowatt of charging power, a really quick recharge, but also a CCS Combo 2 inlet and a possibility to charge between 20 up to 150 kilowatts. And still we have a AC Type 2 Mode 3 connector as well, with a you can call it a very cost efficient solutions to do charging in the depot. This is with a modular battery and all these charging alternatives, you're actually possible to make or to get operation schemes which are both efficient and have margins and can I would say satisfy the different needs in this aspect. Everybody knows today that you want to be certain to reach your goal, so that's why you need a bigger battery. Everybody knows that it's not always possible to find charging spots in the city, so you might need to adopt where you actually can charge. That's also an advantage of the different battery. And you also know that there are different charging powers needed in different situations, so to speak. You should be able to do that. And if we go to the next slide, these are charging patterns that now is possible. And the first one illustrates where you actually use the peak hours to charge less. And you can see that the total energy level of the buses goes down during the early peak hour period. Then in the middle of the day you have less traffic, less demand on being and more time to charge. Then you charge slightly more in this period. And then in the afternoon peak hour again, you use the possibility to charge less time. All thanks to the possibility. And then to the right, of course, you can do another charging scheme, which is more classic overnight charging, where you actually run for until the battery ends, and then you drive back to the depot to any place and you charge. But the thing is, you can charge the bus fully in less than an hour. So you don't have to stay for 4, 5, 6 hours to get a full recharge with this technology. This combination makes it extremely, I would say, possible to find routes in that sense. And I think when we talk to operators today, we can almost always find a way to do electrification. And Peter mentioned the next project in Gothenburg. That has 2 very interesting aspects from a charging perspective. We will use all these different types of technologies in order to charge, and we will also put that route in what you can call very sensitive residential areas. So the noise benefit will be dramatic in that sense. And I think it will be really interesting to follow the research that is going to be done by Gothenburg University on this one, to see the impacts of electric buses in these sensitive residential areas. Let me give you some numbers about the bus that Peter also showed. Next slide, Ola. The prototype Arctic buses, they started operating summer this year. They are focused on high capacity and mainly adopted for, so not so many seated passengers, mainly standing passengers. They have 2 wheelchair spaces each and 2 stroller spaces as well, which is one of the demands in Gothenburg right now, because we see a lot of more people, and in general accessibility to the buses is a key aspect. They have 4 doors as well, really simplifying boarding and offboarding of people. And we use also on this one we use 250 kilowatt hours, but we can also put up an additional battery of 300, so we can get to 300 kilowatts. And then on the dryland specific, we use dual motors, and of course we can do op-charge, CCS and AC charging, as I told you before in this concept. They have been running since June, and we have very good feedback so far on these buses. They are a very nice ride. So if you're in Gothenburg, don't miss the opportunity to take Route 16 and try out these buses. Then let me go to the next slide and let's touch the theme of automation. And I call it automation evolution, actually, because this is how Volvo sees this area. And 1 or 2 years ago, we introduced the fundament for automatic driving or autonomous driving, which is the Volvo Dynamic Steering System, which is a completely electrified steering system, actually, so you can actually do it. Then, of course, automatic charging is piece of this one, and the op-charge systems, which you saw in the previous slides, is also foundations for autonomous and automatic driving. Then Peter presented geofencing, and we call that zone management, which gives the possibility to control the bus on a speed level, or if it's a plug-in hybrid, also on the emission or on the propulsion type. So if it's using electricity 100%, or if it's going or operating in hybrid mode. And then pedestrian detection. In the picture bottom right, you can see a small box there looking for pedestrians. Also an assistance system, I would say. But these 4 services, they are already available in that sense. And then I would ask you, Ola, to run a movie here. It's a bit, it might be a bit slow for you, but let's run it anyhow and see how it plays out. So thank you, and that gives you a view on the benefits with autonomous buses, and you could see in the next steps there you could see some of the what we see as the evolutionary steps in the automatic driving in that sense. We saw bus stop docking, a feature that is have the benefit of making the docking more efficient. Another feature which was not mentioned is also that this is one of the most damaging operations for buses. The rims and the wheels are often damaged by this process. So you can actually save money on this one from a maintenance perspective. So that's another aspect of this. Then next steps is what we call depot handling. It could be automized charging. It could be automized, at least running to the cleaning. We can have a robot vacuum cleaner, but that's what not. I mean, it's more handling going to cleaning. Washing could in principle be totally automatic, and of course the parking. And the reason why we see this as the next evolutionary step is that this is a confined area. Here we can control the environment in that sense. So we see the most obvious business case inside the depot. So the evolution in that sense will be in that one. Then on top of this, I can also tell you that we have one project. The buses that you could see on the movie will run in Singapore. And they will run into a campus area in NTU campus in Singapore. They will start operating somewhere next year. There will be a driver inside as well, just for security reasons. So that will be our first traffic test. But I would call that a pure research project. It's not an operational project. It's not fully commercial in that sense. It's really research to see how our buses can behave in mixed traffic. The mixed traffic is a challenge as far as we can see it. And of course, if you have mixed traffic not only with pedestrians and bikes and cars, that's one aspect, but also a mixed traffic with not autonomous vehicles. I think that is one of the big challenges from our perspective. But we are into this game. We see that it has huge impacts on the overall operation of public transport. And as you could see here, the combination of electric buses as well as autonomous buses that gives us really powerful tools to do very nice city development. And by that, I will end my presentation. Over to you, Ola.
Thank you very much. That's pretty much what we had in mind to give you in this webinar today from us here in Gothenburg, and hopefully everything has been working with the technology inside the conference. So you have been able to listen to these presentations and also see the slides and the movie. And let's give it now the big test. If we can hear you, if there are any questions, we are happy to help you.
Marius has a question.
Do you hear me?
Yes, Marius, can you talk as well? We can't hear you.
You need to write the question, Marius.
I think you need to write it down in the chat so we can see.
Do you hear me now?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Perfect. It was
Hello,
a
Marius.
bit complicated. Hello. It's Marius from Zero in Oslo, in Norway. It was, a bit complicated with the tools here and how to mute the mic. So I did it double. But my question is to both Peter and Magnus, because I was in Gothenburg some weeks ago and drive the 16 line, the 18-meter bus, so it was really nice. And we are really looking forward to get some of them in Oslo and Norway. So when can you deliver, Magnus?
Always the question, Marius, there. It is actually officially not set, so I will respond in a very boring way on this one, which is a bit sad to say, but I have to say it this way. But I think you will have to wait 1 or 2 years or something like that for us to give you some indication. But it's not finally set where we will start operating in commercial. That's the answer, Marius.
Okay. And also, just a short update from Oslo. Here, the PTA for the region has decided that for all the new tenders, they will have a demand for zero-emission buses when the technology is available. And for the city buses, it's fine. Then we have both 12 and 18 meters available. But for the regional buses, the buggy buses, 50 meters. So we're also waiting for that. Probably it will be the same, like boring answer, but I will still ask the question. When will we see the electric also regional buses?
Yeah, and let me answer a bit less boring. You will see the Arctic before the regional buses. Let's put it this way.
Okay.
Yeah. Because we will
Peter...
focus on city buses, Marius, in this space, that's for sure, and then region will come later, I would say. So that's the slightly less boring, but not so much more or less.
Okay. Yeah. And to Peter, if you still are there, you mentioned that the next 5 years there will be several tenders. But what will be the first one, next tender for buses in Gothenburg?
Well, it actually just came out, and it's very disappointing that the PTA hasn't requested electric buses for that one. We are
not happy either from Volvo side. That there are options for electric buses. Some options, but not less than we have hoped for, to be very straightforward.
Yes. The city is very disappointed.
The city is not so happy, Volvo is not so happy, and that's the situation in Gothenburg, Marius.
Why has Västtrafik done that?
I think you need to put that question to Västtrafik.
Actually, we should not
comment on that.
Comment on that.
Okay. If you can supply me the right contact persons, I will ask them.
Yes, we can do that.
We can do that.
Perfect.
But there will be some electric buses in this as well. Yes. So there will be a high capacity loop for sure. There will be an area traffic as well. So I would like to balance the message a bit there, Marius.
Okay.
So there are options also for bigger electrification, but and there will be other projects in Gothenburg as well. So I think, to be fair to Gothenburg, we have a lot of electric, but perhaps slightly less than we would have hoped for, Marius.
Yes.
That's for sure.
Okay. Anyone else up for questions?
I can also ask one more if there's no other questions to Magnus. Very interesting to see the Filmium for the autonomous 12-meter bus. What is your personal guess for when do you think we will see? In how many years do you think we will see such kind of a regular bus, autonomous without driver in the city traffic? Do you think it?
Yeah, thank you for letting me have my personal guess, because that is easier.
Yeah.
And this is then my personal guess and not the Volvo position in that sense, but my personal opinion is that I think that we will see this kind of evolutionary step in, let's say, it will also take 3 to 4 years, and then 2025 we might see something. That is my personal guess. So not before that. That is, I cannot see that with my view on this one. And I also think that we have some drawbacks in general with the Uber accident in the US. We have some delays also on the passenger car side, and the passenger car side has to do a lot of verification on this one before we go there. And as I said in my speech here, there is if we could turn on a switch doing 100% automation of every vehicle, then it would be actually a lot easier. The problem is you will have some autonomous vehicles and some non-autonomous vehicles, and that is always hard to handle.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And from our perspective, we see depot handling, we see probably coaches, long distance buses being ahead of city buses actually, Marius, as well. That is my personal opinion as well. So you can use the highways to do autonomous driving.
Yeah. Interesting, and in some way, that 2025 isn't so far into the future for such big change as this technology will be.
Yeah, but I'm optimistic, Marius. You know me.
Yep.
So. Just an opinion. Nothing
Yeah.
else.
Thank you. Very interesting.
No problem.
So, anyone else up for questions? So, say them or write them in the chat. Okay, then I think we will end this session from Gothenburg here. It's just a few days before we have Christmas, so I just be an early one saying Merry Christmas and have a nice weekends and celebrations with your families. Thank you and bye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.